The east wing of the Tarathi embassy hadn't been used for formal functions in over a decade. I cleaned it anyway. That was the job. 40 rooms, 3 corridors, 2 stairwells nobody climbed, and a ballroom with a cracked skylight that let in the morning sun, and, in the wet season, the rain. I mopped that too. I'd been on the embassy's housekeeping staff for 22 years. Sarah Hollis, badge number 412. I knew every tile in the building by feel. The morning they brought the dragon in, I was doing the east ballroom floor. Security pinged my intercom. Stay clear of the east atrium. Casualty transfer. Something about a battlefield redirect from the Sarathi offensive. A wounded officer, too large for the medical bay. They put him in the old reception hall at the end of my corridor, because the doors were wide enough, and the ceiling was high. I didn't go near it that day. I'm not a medic. I'm not much of anything, if you want the honest answer. I clean things. But the next morning, when I came through on rounds, the medical team was gone. The hall smelled of blood and disinfectant, and something older, a deep mineral scent, like heated iron. The embassy had logged him as stable settled, which is the polite notation for, we did what we could. Nobody had scheduled a follow-up. He filled the room. That's the first thing I'll tell you about General Vorathkel, though I didn't know his name then. He was enormous, 20 feet from jaw to haunch, scaled in iron dark plates that had been battered, cracked, scored through in places to the pale underlayer beneath. His left wing was folded wrong, pinned against his ribs with a medical brace that had already slipped. His breathing was shallow and uneven, and his eyes were closed. The bandages on his chest were soaked through. No one had changed them. I set my cart in the doorway, filled a basin from the utility closet, and got a stack of clean cloths. I didn't think much about it. Someone has to. I came back the next day, and the day after, and the day after that. The routine was simple. I'd fill the basin, wring out a cloth, and start with the wounds I could reach. The long gash along his jaw, the puckered tears where something had gone through the softer scales under his foreleg. I cleaned around the brace, adjusted it when it slipped, rinsed the cloth, wrung it out, moved on. When the bandages needed changing, I cut the old ones away and replaced them with fresh ones from the embassy clinic's supply closet. Nobody noticed the extra usage. Nobody was counting. He didn't move for the first week. I talked to him anyway. The weather, the state of the plumbing in the north corridor, the fact that the kitchen had changed the breakfast rotation and nobody liked it. I'm not a storyteller. I talk the way you talk to a room you're cleaning, because the silence gets heavy if you let it sit. On the 8th day, he opened one eye. It was amber, deep old amber, the color of something that had been watching the world for a very long time. He looked at me, and then he looked at the cloth in my hand, and then he closed the eye again. I kept working. By the second week, he'd started making a sound when I came in, a low vibration in his chest, barely audible, like a furnace cycling on 2 floors below. I learned that it meant he was awake. I learned that when I touched the scales near his jaw, the vibration deepened and his breathing steadied. I learned that he could drink if I held the basin near his mouth and tilted it slowly, and that he preferred the water cool. I don't know dragon physiology. I just watched him, and he told me what he needed, the way anything in pain tells you, by flinching, by leaning in, by going quiet when you get it right. The wing was the hardest part. The brace was holding it at the wrong angle. I could see that even with no training, because the joint was swollen and hot where the metal pressed wrong. I adjusted it over 3 days, a little at a time, watching his eye for the flinch. On the 3rd evening, the swelling had gone down enough that he flexed the wing, just an inch, and made a sound I hadn't heard before. Not the furnace rumble. Something thinner, something that might have been relief. I changed the cloths. I rinsed the basin. I told him about the cracked skylight in the ballroom and how the rain came through in the mornings and made a pattern on the marble that looked like a map of somewhere I'd never been. He watched me with both eyes open. He didn't look away until I left. 6 weeks. That's how long it went. 6 weeks of clean cloths and cool water, and one-sided conversations about plumbing and rain, and the kitchen's endless war on the breakfast rotation. 6 weeks of his breathing getting steadier, his eyes following me across the room, the furnace sound deepening every time I came through the door. I didn't report it. I didn't think to. He was in my corridor, in my wing, in the part of the embassy nobody used. He was my responsibility, the same way the cracked skylight was, not because someone assigned him, but because nobody else was going to do it. The war flight came on a Tuesday. I heard them before I saw them, a deep concussive beat that rattled the windows in the east corridor and sent dust falling from the ceiling joints. 40 dragons, the security log said afterward. Full Vithari battle formation. They'd been searching for their general since the Sorathi offensive, 6 weeks and 3 star systems, following the medical transfer chain from field hospital to triage station to the dead-end notation in the Torathi embassy's intake log. 1 Vithari officer, stable settled, east wing. Embassy security tried to intercept them. There's a protocol for visiting military delegations. Credentials, flight corridor approval, landing clearance. The Vithari warflight observed none of it. They landed in the embassy courtyard in a single column, iron gray and storm dark. And the largest of them, a female with ridged battle plates and a scar that ran from her jaw to her shoulder, walked through the main atrium on all fours without breaking stride. I was in the reception hall when they arrived. I had the general's jaw bandage half changed, a basin of clean water on the floor beside me, a soaked cloth in my hand. I heard the footsteps, heavy, deliberate, clawed, and then the doorway filled with her. She was enormous. Not as large as the general, but close, and she held herself with the kind of stillness that isn't calm, it's restraint. Behind her, the corridor was full of dragons. I could see them through the doorway, iron dark, storm gray, gold-ridged, motionless, their breath fogging in the cool air of the east wing. The female looked at the general, then at me, then at the cloth in my hand, and the basin on the floor, and the fresh bandages stacked on my cart. The general opened both eyes. He lifted his head, the first time he'd raised it more than an inch in 6 weeks, and made a sound, not the furnace rumble, something older. A word or a name, something in a register I couldn't follow. The female's head lowered. Not a bow, not yet. A recognition. She looked at me again, and the way she looked at me was different now. Not hostile, not confused. Something that lived in the space between disbelief and reverence. "Keth Hollis," she said. I stood there with a wet cloth in my hand, and a basin of dirty water at my feet, and 40 war dragons filling the corridor behind her, and I didn't know what to say. "It means she who kept the wound clean when no one else came," the female said. Her voice was deep and textured, like stone settling. "In the old tongue it is a blood name. It does not leave you." She lowered her head. Behind her, in the corridor, the others followed, one by one, a slow wave moving through them like a tide drawing out. 40 dragons, heads low, utterly still. I looked at the general. He was watching me, both amber eyes open, steady, clear. The furnace sound was going, and it had never been louder. "His name is Vorath Kell," the female said quietly. "He commands the Vithari 3rd Warflight. He has not been found for 6 weeks. 40 of us searched." She paused. "You did not search, you simply stayed." "I didn't save him." That's what I told her, or something.